Hi everyone, welcome to the Urban Cottage. So I post my videos both on TikTok and also on YouTube, and a few of my subscribers on YouTube have asked me to do a more in-depth video about the effects of ageing with cerebral palsy, as it is a very understated issue that doesn't really get a lot of attention in the medical field, but also within the community itself. If you're new here, I'm Jade, I'm 32, and I have ataxic cerebral palsy, which also can be abbreviated to CP. So, ageing with cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is often thought of as a childhood disability, and that's just not true. Children with CP grow up to be adults with CP, and we have it all of our life. The damage on the brain, so as a lot of people probably know, cerebral palsy is caused by damage on an infantile brain, either during pregnancy, during birth, or shortly after birth. You cannot get cerebral palsy later in life. It is damage to an infant brain that causes the disability. Now, there is a huge spectrum with cerebral palsy, and I myself have worked with people from all ages, from the very, very, very mild end of the spectrum, barely noticeable, up to the most profound, and everywhere in between. No two people with CP are the same. Although we all have the same umbrella conditions, there's 3 types, we all experience things very differently, depending on the type of CP we have, the area of the brain damage, the severity of the cerebral palsy, and the treatment or lack of treatment that we have, starting at diagnosis all the way up through our adult life. And these are all factors that come into play with each one of us in our journey aging with CP. For me, my post-mortem aging, which is premature aging, started around my mid-20s. Whereas most able-bodied people will start to feel the effects of aging around middle age, up to 40% of us with CP will feel that as young as 20. And for us, that can mean a loss of mobility, a loss of muscle tone, changes in continence, changes in our ability to eat and drink, changes in balance, falling more often, and genuinely becoming extremely fatigued, as well as suffering with chronic pain. For me, the ageing process meant that I was diagnosed also with fibromyalgia. There are a lot of conditions that are secondary to CP, such as fibromyalgia, arthritis, and what's the other one I'm thinking of? Hypermobility, that can affect us as we age. Now, the way my neurologist described it to me, I am 32. But in the world of CP, I'm not really. I'm probably 62. So if you imagine all the things that 62-year-old will struggle with, that they may not have struggled with before, all those age-related things, aches and pains, they're not moving as quick as they used to, perhaps they've got a bit of an overactive bladder. Now you imagine having that at 32, but having a normal life expectancy. So by the time I'm 62, I will actually probably be closer to 100 in terms of ageing. A lot of us will find that we have a lot of changes in our symptoms, in the severity of our symptoms. Although the original injury to the brain itself doesn't spread, the damage is done, and that damage stays where it is. The way that our brains, as we age, sort of work round the injury changes that everyone's brain as you age is constantly forming new pathways, and you know, figuring out which bits fire where. And for someone with a part of the brain essentially missing or severely damaged, as we age, the brain can really struggle to combat this, because the parts of the brain that were originally meant for other things have now got to take on that brain's parts of the brain's job. So essentially we're all doing twice the work underneath. So for example, with myself, I am ambulatory, which means I can walk. I walked unaided until I was 24. I now, if I'm not in my home, I walk with crutches or I use a power wheelchair. Not only do I have to think about walking and maintaining balance, at the same time of doing all that, I have to do everything else that everyone else does when they're out and about. You have to look where you're going. You may be having a conversation with a friend, right? You may be looking to cross the road. You may be walking over suddenly uneven ground, right? For a damaged brain, this is a very difficult thing to do. And as we age, it becomes more difficult. The simple tasks that we have always done, which have always been more difficult for us, will continue to become more difficult. We may have changes in our continence. We may have changes in our energy level. Myself, personally, I have chronic pain. I am in pain every day of my life, and I have been for the last 10 years, and I also have chronic fatigue. And this is not the same as being tired. A 10-minute rest is not going to even cut it in the slightest, okay? When you're aging with brain damage, when you're aging with a disability like cerebral palsy, our bodies already use up to 5 times the amount of energy than our able-bodied counterparts. So if you imagine, if I were to I mean, I can't really do it now, but if I was to try and walk up a flight of stairs, it would be like walking up a flight of stairs with another person strapped to my lower body and having to wade with that. That's the amount of energy it takes, and as we age, this will become more and more apparent and become more and more of a struggle for many of us, which is why I think a lot of us with CP, when we get to our late 20s and early 30s, you really will see that we slow down quite a lot. And we don't slow down because we've given up or we've succumbed to the disability. We slow down because we have a long way to go to live a normal life expectancy. We have a lot of years ahead of us, and we are going to continue to age at a faster rate. So like I said earlier, when I'm 60, I'm probably going to be 100. How many 100-year-old people do you really see walking around? So when we say we can't, or we don't have the energy, or we are struggling, believe us, because we are. We've spent our whole life using more energy, 5 times the amount of energy than our able-bodied counterparts. And now, the stuff you don't have to worry about until you hit 50, we're having to deal with it now. And then, what at 50, right? What then? So, as I say, if this has interested you, if this is something that you are interested in, this is part 1. Please feel free to check out part 2, which I will probably upload tomorrow, and I'll go more in detail with some of the symptoms that I personally have experienced with cerebral palsy and how they've changed for me in my life. And I'll end by saying that if you are a fellow cerebral palsyian and you have any symptom changes whatsoever, please do consult your medical professionals and your neurologist.